Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Friday Ramblings. And as you can see, I'm wearing my resplendent Star Wars tuxedo t-shirt. We have kitty cameos. Because it is time for the holidays, it is time to celebrate, and it's time to do it in style. Now, while I could do a standard, typical Thanksgiving fare, frankly, I started thinking about it and I realized I've kind of hit up all the really good stuff. We've discussed Peanuts Thanksgiving special. We've discussed the Garfield Thanksgiving special. We have even discussed food-based anime at its greatest. No, I'm not talking about Food Wars with its potentially not safe for work audio when it comes to how much people enjoy food, but Toriko. And I do encourage you to watch all those videos if you need extra helpings of your ramblings. See what I did there? I bet you did, because it was such an obvious joke. But for now, we are going to discuss a video game franchise that definitely is all about dashing ne'er-do-wells. I'm going to try that again. Dashing good guys, fighting ne'er-do-wells, and dishing out serving after serving after serving after serving. Yep. You know it if you read the titles. But if you don't, I do not judge you. I'm just happy you clicked the videos regardless. We are talking about Kunio-Kun. Now, I know most of you standard casual game players are like, what is a Kunio-Kun? Why do I care about Kunio-Kun? Well, you're going to find out because thanks to translation and localizations, you're going to recognize a couple of these game entries. Let's break it down and then get to the good stuff. Kunio-Kun was a video game series started by Technos Japan. Technos Japan later became Million Core. But then the IP rights for most of the Technos library was purchased by Arc System Works. Arc System Works is most famous for the Guilty Gear series, as well as various licensed fighting games, such as multiple Dragon Ball Z entries. We will go through Arc System Works another time, I'm sure, as well as Technos and various games they made before they shut down. Still, we are focusing on our boy Kunio and how he has survived the decades and in fact flourished. Now, as I said, there is some fun with localization and translations in that most of the 8-bit era games were brought over to the West, but were brought over and marketed as if they were unrelated, separate games. Kinda quirky. But fortunately, it'll all make sense when we break it down, outside of the fact that, it's the way the locals felt that we would most enjoy the games here in the West. So, let's break it down. The original game was created by Yoshihisa Kishimoto. He pitched a semi-autobiographical game based on his teenage high school years, with the protagonist Kunio-Kun, Kun itself being a suffix, the character's name would be just Kunio, loosely based on himself. Kishimoto recalled his experiences as a high school student regularly getting into fights on a daily basis, which was partially triggered up by a breakup with a girl who dumped him. Kishimoto was, like pretty much everybody his age, fan of Bruce Lee's martial arts films, and thus combined elements from Lee's iconic Enter the Dragon with that of his own life to create the concept for Kunio. He would also go on to design Double Dragon, which itself is quite a long-lasting franchise, which was originally envisioned as a direct sequel to the original Kunio game, before becoming a new game with a different cast and setting. Now remember that little trivia fact, because it's gonna matter later on. Not now. Later. Don't remember it now. Remember it later. So with that said, the game's protagonist was named after Technos Japan's former president, Kunio Taki. And many of the later games in the series were the handiwork of two men, Mitsuhiro Yoshida and Hiroyuki Sekimoto. Let's break it down. The first game was designed for the arcades. Originally, although it was later ported as a classic game to the PlayStation 2, Nekketsu Koha Kunio-Kun translates as Hot-Blooded Tough Guy Kunio, and was a classic arcade beat-em up. However, we did not get a game called this in America. We did, however, get a game in America called Renegade. Yep. Renegade did feature changed graphics and dubbed voices to give the game a more Western-looking setting. Plot was also changed from Kunio beating gangs to avenge his friend, to the main hero having to rescue his girlfriend. There were two Renegade sequels that were not part of the core Kunio series, called Target Renegade and Renegade 3: The Final Chapter. Later there would be a NES port of Kunio Renegade, and because of the various changes to the structure of the game, including different levels, it is generally considered a kind of remake of the arcade than a full-on straight port. Happened a lot in the 8-bit eras. Next up, we would see a jump to a slightly different genre, which is going to become a theme here, with Nekketsu Koko Dodgeball Boo. Or Ba. I'm going to say Boo. It's B with one U. This is the second game starring Kunio and the first sports game starring the character, as Kunio leads his school's dodgeball team, Nekketsu High School, as it competes against the rival Hanazono High School, before proceeding to compete against 5 international teams. Once again, this was released in the United States without the Kunio context. You may have heard of it, it's kind of iconic. Super Dodgeball, in which the Japanese team became Americans and vice versa. Super Dodgeball would also see, again, a somewhat modified port for the Famicom and eventually Microsoft Windows. Still called Super Dodgeball in America. However, the final team is the Soviet Union this time, and it is in Japan referred to specifically as Nekketsu High School Dodgeball Club. Good times, good times. This is where it really gets fun though, folks. Here's where we get to pay close attention and things get complicated and naughty. And I mean naughty in the like a not sense, as opposed to the getting on Santa's bad list sense. We are family friendly, rambling here, folks, at least this week. Downtown Nekketsu Story, aka Town of Downtown Nekketsu, is the third Kunio game and the first produced specifically for consoles, premiering on the Family Computer and the X68000 computer, which was created by the Sharp Corporation. was later ported to the PC Engine, aka the TurboGrafx 16 here in America. The game is a side-scrolling beat-em-up which combined RPG elements such as buying items and equipment that would increase players' stats or acquire new moves. This sounds familiar. I feel like there's a really iconic NES game that... Maybe if we change the character's name around, we could call it River City Ransom! River City Ransom is a Kunio game. You see, this is what I'm talking about. This is where it gets good. Not only do you get the fun of Super Dodgeball, not only do you get the fun of Renegade, but you get the fun of River City Ransom. 3 games that were 8-bit era icons were all part of Kunio. Now, the game is also known in Europe as Street Games. And has popped up on various ports over the years. And we will be mentioning the River City localization name later. Next, we go back to the sports versions with Nekketsu Koko Dodgeball Bu PC Bangai Hen, which is a special version of the original Dodgeball, which combines the graphics and teams of the arcade version with the emphasis on character-specific statistics and team formation, giving it more of a management sub-level to it that is found in a lot of modern sports games with their, season modes and all that good time stuff. In fact, it features the classic arcade style mode and the more plot-oriented quest mode. We then got Nekketsu High School Dodgeball Club's Soccer Story, featuring Kunio and his dodgeball team helping Masako, the manager of the Nekketsu Soccer Club, as they participate in a national soccer tournament against other schools. I just don't know if that would play well over here in America. Is there a way we could maybe vary this up? Maybe give the game a more worldwide theme, downplay some of the high school stuff, and... We did! And we called it Nintendo World Cup. Another infamous game. That's like, what? 4 series that are really won? Because that is the power of Kunio. He cannot be denied. He can only be transformed. Next we would have Downtown Nekketsu March Super Awesome Field Day, in which Nekketsu High competes against 3 other teams who compete in a series of 4 athletic events. This one was not released in America as a brand new series, and in fact was not released in the Western regions until September 6, 2023 as part of the Virtual Console service. We then got Nekketsu Koha Kunio-Kun Bangai Ranto Hen, which goes back to the arcade beat-em-ups and is the franchise's Game Boy debut. Oh, remember how I said you kind of have that other franchise that was supposed to be Kunio but wasn't? About a pair of dragons? Double dragons, maybe? Yes, that's right. It was released internationally with changed graphics and music as a Game Boy version of Double Dragon 2, as opposed to the Game Boy getting a straight port of the actual Double Dragon 2 game. They came back together. See? Naughty. Not like a knot. We would then get the Game Boy version of Nintendo World Cup with Neketsu Koko Sakubu World Cup Hen. Before Downtown Special, Kunio-Kun's historical period drama, in which the characters act out a period play. This was put on both the NES and Game Boy, eventually seeing the West through the Virtual Console service. In fact, that's pretty much the only way most of the games here in the middle are going to go. So let's go through these quickly. In fact, I'm going to shorthand some of these names. We had a Game Boy specific version of Neketsu Koko Dodgeball Boo series, Dodge Soldier no Maki, CD Soccer Hen, a version of Super Dodgeball for the PC Engine Super CD-ROM add-on. This version has an additional 5 national teams in tournament mode after beating the original final match. We jump sports again with Go-Go Neketsu Hockey Club Slip and Slide Madness, centered around Kunio's attempts to help his school's hockey club. The game was planned to be released in North America under the title of Crash and the Boys Ice Challenge, but was canceled. We then got yet another repackaging with a more obscure Famicom game in aka NES. Surprise! Neketsu New Records, the Distance Gold Medal, became Crash and the Boys Street Challenge, in which the game featured Olympic-style contests without rules or regulations between 5 street teams. So there you go. He's not finished getting repackaged and reimagined yet, folks. The classic Downtown Neketsu series returns with Dokodemo Daiyun Dokai on the Game Boy. Then we get a beat-em-up RPG, so similar to your River City Ransom style, called Shodai Neketsu Koha Kunio-Kun, which was their debut on the Super Famicom. The Mega Drive, aka Genesis, got yet another version of Soccer World Cup. This is the only version where all the teams are playable in the 2-player exhibition mode. We jump back to the NES for Neketsu Fighting Legend, a tournament-style fighting game. A sequel to the original soccer game that has, as we've said, been ported a few times over with Kunio-Kun's Neketsu Soccer League. Jumping back to the Game Boy with Pikaru Neketsu Shin-Iroku, a Game Boy specific version of Shin-Iroku, the which is another Olympic style multi-medal game event. It also features umbrellas that replace swimming event from the Famicom version. Jump back to the Super Famicom for a sequel to the original Dodgeball in Dodgeball Dayo Zenin Shugo. Kunio now tries his hand at basketball on the original Famicom with Neketsu Street Basketball All Out Dunk Heroes. The Baseball Tale of Downtown Neketsu is the third Kunio game for the Super Nintendo and the first and only game where Kunio is not the main character, featuring his various supporting cast in the baseball game. Shin Neketsu Kohai Kunio Tachi no Banka, Came out for the Super Nintendo. And in much more recent years, in fact, more recent days even, in 2022, it finally saw a release in America under the title of River City Girls Zero. Oh, we haven't even mentioned the River City Girls franchise. Spoileritos. Although we haven't mentioned River City Ransom, so, you know. Once again, thanks to Way4 Technologies for helping with this updated port. Kunio no Odin is the final Kunio game for the Super Famicom. We jumped back to the Game Boy for Beach Volleyball. This would close out the original Game Boy's run of Kunios. Kunio no Niketsu Dodgeball Densetsu came out for the Neo Geo in 1996 and is the final Kunio game released by Technos Japan before the company went out of business. The game was never formally released in Japan and only saw limited release as an MVS-only Neo Geo release in North America, and in fact was co-published and co-distributed with SNK due to Technos having financial difficulties. Million Core would debut its run of Kunio with a remake of Downtown Niketsu Story, released in America as River City Ransom X for the Game Boy Advance. Downtown Niketsu Monogatari X. We would then get various compilations for the Game Boy Advance that saw Japan only release. We're going to skip through those real quick. Eventually in 2008, the Nintendo DS saw a Super Dodgeball sequel developed by Arc Systems Works, known locally as Super Dodgeball Brawlers, originally titled Shoneketsu Koko Kunio-Kun Dodgeball Club. We would eventually get an independently published dodgeball game developed by Miracle Kids, a doujin group formed by the original game designers of River City Ransom, under the name of Downtown Dodgeball Deo Zenin Shugo, aka River City Dodgeball All-Stars. So, you know, old school staff returns. We're still jumping between genres all over the place, folks. The Xbox 360 would see Downtown Ketsu Dodgeball, also developed by Miracle Kids, known locally as Downtown Smash Dodgeball, River City Super Sports Challenge. In 2010 for the Nintendo DS, developed by Arc System Works, and it's the first Kunio game to feature mission modes, or missions mode. Nintendo DS also got a follow-up to Nintendo World Cup, which, as we've discussed, under High School Dodgeball Club Soccer Story, in its original span, had many ports and updates. This is the first full-on follow-up and was known in the West as River City Soccer Hooligans. As you can see, by and large, the River City name became the most predominant one for Kunio's Western adventures. Miracle Kids would produce a third dodgeball game, Downtown Ketsu Dodgeball, under the WiiWare system. However, Million did have involvement in the development of this game. We would then get a 3DS remake of the original Renegade to celebrate the franchise's 25th anniversary, featuring characters from Niketsu Renegade, Downtown Niketsu series, the Double Tiger Brothers from Niketsu Fighting Legend, to make it all good. A Kunio spin-off starring Kunio's rival and occasional partner Ricky came out for the Nintendo DS 3DS in 2012. Finally, we're getting down to it, folks. Woo! We're down to the last, 12 odd years here. Let's break this down real quick. River City Tokyo Rumble. Came out for the Nintendo 3DS and was released in certain regions by Natsumi Inc. River City Knights of Justice is a spin-off featuring characters from Downtown Niketsu story in a fantasy RPG setting for the Nintendo DS as a eShop exclusive title. Kunio-Kun no Niketsu Street for mobile cell phone gaming platforms. A follow-up to the historical period drama from many, many entries ago, Downtown Niketsu Jidaigeki. River City Super Sports Challenge All-Stars Special. It was published by H2 Interactive outside of Japan. And outside of Asia, it was only released as a downloadable title for the PlayStation 3 or Windows. River City Rival Showdown, to celebrate its franchise's 30th anniversary, is a remake of Downtown Niketsu story for the, hey look, we're up to the modern generations, Switch, PlayStation 4, and Steam. Even included a fighting game called Fighting of Double Dragon or Double Dragon Duel in the English version. It was originally released on Nintendo 3DS, and that version was released outside Japan once again by Natsumi Inc. But as we said, you can get it on more modern platforms. Compilation of 11 classic Kunio Famicom/NES games was put out called Kunio-Kun Niketsu Complete. River City Melee Battle Royale Special for the PlayStation 4 and Windows. River City Ransom Underground for Linux, Mac, and Windows. Also known as Downtown Niketsu Monogatari Underground in Japan, developed by Konatis Creative. Kunio-Kun, the World Classics Collection for Switch 4, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One, which is also known as Double Dragon and Kunio-Kun Retro Brawler Bundle, depending on, again, what part of the world you're in, contains 11 games from the previous mentioned Kunio-Kun Niketsu Complete, as well as the Western versions of several of those games, including the original NES Double Dragon trilogy. They just keep tying Double Dragon back to it. You know, it happens when the same staff works on it. Finally, we get the game most people think of in modern times when you say River City, which is River City Girls, developed by WayForward under supervision from Arc System Works, and was released in Japan as Niketsu Koha Kunio-Kun Gaiden Riba Shaitai Garuzu, aka hot-blooded tough guy Kunio side story River City Girls, featuring longtime girlfriends Kyoko and Masako's playable characters rescuing their boyfriends Kunio and Riki. Brawling game was released under River City Melee Mock for the Switch, PS4, and Windows. Stay Cool Kobayashi-san, a River City Ransom story, is a spin-off starring Masao Kobayashi from Downtown Niketsu story taking place after that title for your modern gen systems. River City Saga 3 Kingdoms, seeing familiar characters run amok in the world of Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which is very important in the East. And more recently, we have its direct sequel, River City Saga 3 Kingdoms Next. And finally, River City Girls 2. Once again developed by WayForward under supervision from Arc System Works. And there you have it, folks. Counting Double Dragon, in America, we got like 5, maybe 6 franchises. But it was all Kunio-Kun and his supporting cast in the original. Which brings up the question: is he one of the great icons? I will say, while I would not put him under the tier of like a Mario or a Sonic, because that is your absolute upper tier. I would put Kunio on definitely the third tier, possibly second. Fact is, in Japan, Kunio-Kun never really went away. There were a lot of Japanese exclusive titles there we threw out at you. And the fact he has survived in being developed under 3 different companies with a couple other companies working on them with permission and supervision from whoever owned the IP at the time, such as Way Forward working alongside Arc System Works for the modern River City Girls franchise. Not to mention its connections to the Double Dragon series. Yeah, you could argue that Kunio should be celebrated as one of the great franchise players of the video game industry. I certainly do. I would like to see some more modern takes on some of the sports titles. Heck, just do a compilation, you know, between the World Game, Olympic style ones, basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer, dodgeball, all had specific games for them. You could argue, as much as people love the arcade style beat 'em ups, Kunio's as much of a sports star as anybody. Could be a thing. Why not? People still love their sports titles. What do you got, folks? Come on, game industry. Heck, just the fact that thanks to the River City Girls franchise, we're actually getting games in the West where Kunio gets to be Kunio. That's one of the great things about the advancements in the video game culture. We here in the West are now 100% on board with games being as close to what the Eastern world got as possible, despite cultural differences. So, with that, I'm going to sign off. I gave you a big heaping helping of goodness, even if it wasn't technically Thanksgiving dinner. Join me next month. We're going to get a little more holiday specific. I know I was kind of stretching on the theme here a little bit, but you know what? That's how we do it. We ramble, we make bad jokes, and we do it with love. So stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you at the next rambling, folks. Enjoy your holidays.